Chelsea is looking at the implications of the recommendations on the vaccine rollout programme.
It is likely in light of this that AstraZeneca probably will not be given to people tomorrow. Clearly it shouldn't be given to people aged 60 years or less than 60 years tomorrow.
Ireland's 5-day moving average of new COVID-19 cases has dropped by 23% in the past week. It now stands at 404 cases. Meanwhile, the 14-day incidence rate now stands at 132 cases per 100,000 people, down 15% over the same period. It comes as a further 394 new cases and no new deaths were reported this evening. There are 227 people now in hospital with the virus, 50 of those in ICU. Public transport is still operating at 25% capacity despite the return of schools and the easing of some COVID restrictions. There were complaints of overcrowding on morning rail commuter services in the capital. Mark Gleeson from Rail Users Ireland travelled from Dunleary to Dublin city centre this morning.
On the rare occasions I use the train for essential travel, it's been quiet, well under the 25%. This morning it was absolutely wedged. It was like the old times.
And Prince William and Harry have praised their grandfather's humour and kindness to others. The royal brothers are the first of the Duke of Edinburgh's grandchildren to publicly honour his memory. Politicians are also sharing their memories of Prince Philip in the Commons this evening. It's 9:02.
News Talk Weather.
Any showers in eastern areas will die out tonight and it'll be mainly dry across the country. Some fog and frost in places overnight with lowest temperatures of -1 to +2 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Fake crowd noise? The Emirates never sounded so good. Gamble responsibly. CWE.net.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Welcome along to the Football Show. So 45th minute of the first half, Brighton against Everton 0-0 in that game already this evening. West Brom have beaten Southampton. Callum Robinson again scoring for West Brom. Coming up later on, we're going to talk to Karen Duggan. Ireland played Belgium last night. They played Denmark the other evening. They're on a 5-game losing streak at the moment. No goals from play over these 5 games, but there is talk of progress. So we'll see what Karen has been making of things. In the meantime, we have a busy Premier League weekend to discuss.
Kane to Lucas and then to Son on that hand side. He puts that ball behind Dean Henderson, slots it very calmly in behind the United goalkeeper to make it Tottenham Hotspur 1, Manchester United 0. Here is Fred on the edge of the box, plays to Cavani. Cavani in his shot, brilliant save by Lloris. He palms it away and the loose ball slammed home by Fred. It's an equaliser for Manchester United. It's Tottenham Hotspur 1, Manchester United 1. Here's a cross into Cavani. Cavani heads it in past Hugo Lloris out of nowhere. A brilliant move there by Manchester United down the right hand side. The cross comes in to Edinson Cavani. A flying header by the Uruguayan international. He heads it past Hugo Lloris, and incredibly, and we haven't even hit the 80-minute mark, Tottenham Hotspur 1, Manchester United 2. Put the cherry on top of this win. He certainly does. He blasts that under the arms of Hugo Lloris. The ball slams into the net. It's Tottenham Hotspur 1, Manchester United 3. Mason Greenwood with the strike. A brilliant move by Manchester United. And you have to give huge credit to Paul Pogba for his fancy twinkle toes, getting around Højbjerg and setting up Mason Greenwood.
Stephen Doyle and Vinnie Perth on commentary yesterday and Off the Ball. Live commentary every Sunday of the Premier League. Pat Nevin, good evening.
Good evening, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm very well. It's been a while. I hope your international break was good. Ours was a great success. Luxembourg are a damn good side. We'll say no more on the matter, Pat.
I don't know if it makes it any easier, right? But my worst memory of international football was the 0-0 draw against Luxembourg. And they played us over there. And the grass was about 6 inches long. And even that was still bobbly below it. And my manager said to me on the day, get the ball down and run with it and dribble past people. I mean, what? It's impossible. So not good memories for me either, with that lot. So, no, strange times, weird times. It's okay for Scotland. Still kind of in the hunt, as it were. But we're still grieving the loss of Kieran Tierney for a wee while, because he was absolutely amazing for Scotland, and a big miss for Arsenal now.
Yeah. We heard commentary there from Spurs 1, Manchester United 3. A strange game. Came to life in the second half. First half, not so much.
Yeah. Oddly enough, I'd been to watch Spurs play Newcastle the week before. And it's really odd. They can be an exceptional team and they can be dull as dishwater, and they can be both of them in the same game. But they're just a distance off where they need to be. They've got a manager who's capable, but he needs more time, because that defence isn't good enough. You need a better defence than that, and Mourinho knows what to do there. I just don't think he's given the chance to get the right players there. I just don't know if the right players will absolutely go to that club. They're just too far down in comparison to the other clubs that are going for top defenders. So he's stuck in the rock and a hard place, Mourinho, because he's got enough going forward at the moment. Note at the moment, wow. Whether they all stay. But against United, it was okay for certain periods of time. But United looked hungrier, and then they just looked swagger. There was a swagger about United in the end, wasn't there? I like that part of it's Pogba when he's on and he's up for it now. It just everything changes. Everyone else gets a wee swagger around him. It's infuriating when he doesn't do it often enough. I thought he got a hard time. I don't know if anyone who saw it. He tried that back heel flick to score, and he got a bit of stick from a lot of people on that one. I thought it was harsh, because it was behind him. It came quite quickly, and you watch it in slow motion, and it looks as if he's trying to be a fancy Dan, but in actual fact, it was a perfectly reasonable way to go for the ball, and I think he actually did quite well in the game.
That's quite a generous assessment of Mourinho you've given us there.
Just looking at it from his point of view to some degree, because it's easy to dig him. Everyone's digging him out, and he's the easiest guy to dig out, and he does drive you mad sometimes. But having watched him through all the years, I know what he does. He will get, and it doesn't matter if it's Real Madrid or Tottenham Hotspur, he will go and organise a system and a structure, a team that's got a central spine that's really good. And you can see with the likes of Højbjerg, that's fine. Up front, there's no problem there at all. But at the back line, it's just never looked right. It's not dreadful, but it's miles away from being a Mourinho team. And I just don't think he's really had the money or the time or whatever to get centre-backs in that he would rate. And there just isn't any there that are good enough or good enough anymore to the level that they want to get to for the top four. Whether he'll get the chance to do that or not is absolutely always a question. He's made, I'm not saying he's been brilliant this season, but he's been okay. But if he had what he needed, whether he should have been spending less time trying to get Gareth Bale over and more time doing anything to get a centre back or two in there that he could have built it around, I think that would have been a much more sensible thing to do.
And the centre backs he has, there's nothing he can do realistically to get them to the required level, no? Either by personal coaching or creating a very coherent system.
It's kind of difficult to see because there are certain players that you think I can get that out of, get a little bit more out of them. But I just think they're of a standard, it may well be that the likes of Rodon might actually get better. Some of them get better with age. But there's Davinson Sanchez, I just don't know. I think it looks like a bit of time. It took him 2 or 3 years before he's absolutely cooked to a level where you think, and if he will ever be, he's good enough for the Premier League. Don't get me wrong, they are good enough for the Premier League. But are they good enough to be top four? Well, I don't think they are. You need that set to make sure that you can do the right job to make sure you give away fewest amount of goals, fewest amount of chances. Because the big thing about Spurs, they will score goals. They will create chances. There's no problem there. Middle to front, there is enough creativity and there are enough goals in the team. So where is the problem? Well, you look back there, and Lloris is, I don't think he's as good a keeper as he used to be, but he's still probably good enough. But there's one area, the full-back areas, that they do okay. I think they're fine there. I think there's just that big part in the middle. And it's, if you want to go to the absolute top level in the Premier League, where the standard that there is just, around, you've got to be steady there. You've got to be really steady there. Just look at what happens to Liverpool as soon as they lose the centre-backs.
Yeah.
It's kind of obvious. He just kind of falls apart and everybody just targets that area.
Yeah, that Liverpool point is fair. Because, I take all those points you make now very seriously. But I thought when he said same coach, different players, that cut to the heart of it for me. And I thought, You're almost right, but it's a different coach. And I feel he's done. I really do. I think at Porto and Inter and other teams he could inspire a collective. I think he is struggling to connect with the Dele Alli generation. He himself even talks about this modern world increasingly and how he struggles to make sense of it. And I think he was a touch spoiled at the peak of his powers. Chelsea and Madrid and now working with shortcomings in a squad causes him to lose patience. I think at Porto it excited him, and I think now he looks at it and sees what he doesn't have. And I feel the end point is coming into sight here, predictably enough, with Spurs.
If you ask me, is he as hungry now as he was in the Porto days and in the Chelsea days? Absolutely not. No chance. But that's human nature. I mean, it's just the way it is. You come in hungry to get everything you can. I mean, the job he done at Porto was absolutely extraordinary. You know, with decent resources, but not with extraordinary resources. Obviously, he would do well domestically, but to do well, you know, in Europe, which he did extraordinarily well with them. Chelsea was a very good job, but you're right, he had unbelievable resources at the time, but built something special. He built a club that was a decent club into a world-class club, and it was him with the money, you know, and that was what caused it. But after that, yeah, you're right. You know, he is a very, very good technical coach. The most interesting thing, I mean, fun enough, we'd mostly expect to talk about Man United here, you know, with the fact that they did well, but the most interesting thing is after the game is he said something which I've not heard him say it for a decade now, and it was quite surprising because he said it to me time and again when I've met him. It drives him mad. The press won't talk to him about the technical aspects of the game. They just talk about individuals. So he just gives these general answers. He's desperate to say, right, this is why it happened. And I just wish he'd get asked that a wee bit more often. And they might give you something really good, you know, but he never seems to get asked it. There's all these kind of slight trip-up questions that seem to be aimed at him. And again, that's perfectly reasonable. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. It's a story. It's journalism. That's why you do it. I just wish a few more times you'd say to him, right, talk us through this. Tell me through the phases of the game, what you did, why you did it, what did you get wrong, what did you get right, what should you have changed, is there anything you can tell us about that? And the guy, he would open up and he would tell you more than I can tell you, obviously. And I would love to hear it, you know, and that, just listening to the weekend, that's the first time he kind of almost frustratedly said that. Because I think he wants to say something like, look, I'm okay, middle at front, I'm fine.
Yeah.
You know, but I need to do something back there. He wants people to say it. He
hinted at it after that Newcastle game. And by the way, like, we're talking fine margins here. 2-1 up laid on against Newcastle. If they see that out, they're basically within touching distance of fourth, if not fourth. And they've a cup final coming up, and so suddenly the world looks a bit rosier. So look, things 180 very quickly in the space of a week. But after that Newcastle game, he was asked about, you know, what was going wrong, and he did talk about spatial awareness and top players not seeing certain patterns, and sort of started to get into it. And then I think it was Juliet Farrington asked him, well, you know, you were a coach who could get your team solid. What's happened there? And that's when he said the same coach, different players line, which obviously was the dominant headline, but he had given a more nuanced answer before that. But then again, Jose, and you'd know this, if you say same coach, different players, you know what the headline is. I think I got the impression that was on 5 Live. He had done all the TV interviews. He might have done a couple of other interviews. That was kind of like, I've answered this question 20 times, so here's the glib answer.
Yeah, it's funny things because I handed to Juliet, right?
Oh.
So Juliet's did it. Juliet, I'm in her island. She's talking to Mourinho and she's kind of looking up to me about 40 yards away. And she goes to the next question. She goes to the last question and she knows she's annoyed him. Comes back to her and she has to do it again and answer again. But Juliet went back down, right? Because that's the way she is. And she's not using anything. That's the way she is, right? But the funniest bit, which you won't see anywhere because she's looking at me, right? At the end of it, he finishes the answer and Juliet says something along the lines, well thank you for speaking to us, Jose. It's been really good. By the end of her thank you, Jose is 30 yards away.
Yeah.
He doesn't wait to say the goodbye or anything like that. She's actually speaking. He's walked away. He's halfway up there. And I'm looking at it, and Julia's looking up at me, and I'm going, that's just Jose. He was so angry. But I don't think he was angry with her. He was angry, as you are rightly say, he's been asked a bunch of questions. They're all a bit similar and he's fed up with it.
Yeah.
And she's then asked the same question twice, which she didn't want to hear again. But it was an interesting thing that, because it's radio, you don't see it. I said it. I explained it. Now, people might say I'm a Josie apologist. No. When he does something that's not acceptable behaviour, I'm just saying it. And it was a really funny, interesting moment. I went straight down and talked to her afterwards and thought she might be a wee bit upset by being put under such pressure. Nah.
She's fine.
Smiling.
And would you not think, so look, I'm giving the harsh assessment here, Mourinho, but I do think it's over. I think it's done in terms of him being of the calibre of Klopp and Pep and whoever you want to name. And he's been a phenomenon. Like, who am I to say anything against Jose Mourinho? I accept that. But, like, it's not just the defence. I mean, it's an extension of the really dull football we saw way too often at Manchester United, where they run out of ideas of how to break down a team. And look, at Spurs at times, Kane and Son are going to do their thing, especially on the break, and Bale comes on and they'll beat up on some opposition. But, like, I don't sense that he's given his team a method anymore as to how to break down opposition at United or Spurs.
There is a method, and there are methods, but they're not as good as Pep's.
No.
I mean, they are. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And, and even you look at people like Graham Potter and things like that, they're doing really interesting, different things. They've moved on. Football moves on quickly. And you either move on with it or you absolutely make excellence out of what your method is. The thing is, that method's not winning things anymore. You look around the continent, that it's not really winning things anymore. The Bayerns aren't playing like that. PSGs aren't playing like that. You look at the top teams in Spain for years now, they haven't been playing that way. Just the game's moved on. It's about a more positive, more, possession-based, but not just possession for possession's sake based type of football. So, yeah, it does look aged. I would agree. I would absolutely agree. But can it still, in some occasions, squeak out a cup? Probably.
Yeah.
Now and again it can do that. And you just wonder, is that what Spurs are? And I think it probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has been for generations. And maybe, if they do squeeze up that cup against Manchester City, which is a possibility, then you can look and go, well, it's been a long time since Spurs won anything. And I think a lot of it does really go down to that.
Yeah. Let's get to the oddest post-match exchange then in quite some time. I mean, I'm sorry to even ask you to analyse this because I don't know what the hell's going on, frankly. So it starts with the Son, VAR, McTominay moment. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer not happy. Have a listen.
I said we shouldn't be conned, but I have to say, if my son stays down like this for 3 minutes and he gets 10 of his mates around him, if he gets that in the face from one of his other mates, and he needs 10 mates to help him up, yeah, he won't get any food. And I'm still saying that. I'm saying the same now as I did with the first time we played him.
To use your words, you feel you were conned again?
No, we weren't. We weren't. The referee was.
As a brief aside, is like not giving your kids food, is that a thing? Yeah. I was generally fed even when I was bad.
Sent up to bed without your dinner.
Oh, okay.
A couple of days is pushing it.
Well, Jose then was so aghast at the thought of a child not being given food that he went off on this response.
I just want to say Sonny is very lucky that his father is a better person than Ole. Because I think I am a father, I think a father, you have always to feed your kids, doesn't matter what they do. If you have to steal to feed your kids, you steal. I'm very, very disappointed. And because with me, like we say in Portugal, bread is bread and cheese is cheese, I told already Ole what I think about his comments. And I have to tell you that I'm very, very disappointed that in 5, 6, 7 questions, you ignore the dimension of that comment.
Oh yeah, Pat, he's really aching for some good technical chat there, so he is. On the bread is bread, cheese is the cheese thing, it's unfortunate he brings the food thing into that. So I think that bread is bread, cheese is cheese thing, that's almost a Portuguese idiom for I tell it like it is. So he's saying I tell it like it is. That's why I've told Solskjaer already I don't like his comments. But when you're talking about how a father should steal and then you're bringing in bread and cheese, look, he's lucky he has a well-stocked CV. If this was his first or second year in English football and he was coming out with this nonsense, you'd say, I'm not sure he's fit really to be coaching at this level. It's just, I don't know. Well, like, what did you think of this?
Right, first of all, Mourinho was Cantona-esque. I was waiting for the trawlers and the seagulls at any point in time there. So it was bizarre. If you have to break it down, Solskjaer was speaking metaphorically.
Yes.
And he took it literally.
Yes.
And deliberately so.
Yes.
So there is nonsense around it and stupidity around it. I would break it down to the fact that, do you know what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said? I loved him for saying it. I loved him for saying that. What he's saying is, don't act like a child. And if a child would do that and pretend he was hurt when he wasn't, and it was obvious, I would be absolutely fuming with him. That's all he's saying, right? And I'm with you in that. Except Son actually did get a bit of a dunt. And you know what I'm like with people that dive and people that pretend to be hurt, right? So I'm going to look at that. The first twice I've looked at it, I'm thinking, oh, get up, Son. Honestly, that's embarrassing. There is another angle. He actually, don't look at it in slow motion as usual. Full speed, it's, I think it's 18, high 18 for the far side. Bang, and it is a done. Now, you don't need hospitalisation for it, but he's been hit. It's not deliberate, but he actually, it's smarts, that one, right? The ones that go down when there's nothing wrong, you've just been touched, they're the ones, Ole, I'm with you in that one, mate. And I think that's what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer thinks has happened. And I'm happy with him saying that. I want more people to say that sort of thing. You know, just out these people for the nonsense that's going on. We've talked about it many times before, and I still think the referees are completely at fault for the fact that they just allow it too often. If you keep an allowing diving, they will dive. If you stop it at the start of the game, they'll not do it. It kind of almost ruined the game to some degree because there was a lot of screaming and yelping in that one. I don't know if you listened to it or watched it with the sound of the crowd. I watched it without the crowd, and there was a stunning amount of yelping in that game from both sides, and it was ridiculous, more so than any other game I watched at the weekend or for a few weeks. So the referee didn't, step down on it hard right at the start, and that's just what happens. So they try and take advantage of it. I think Ole got it wrong, but only because it was the wrong time to say it.
I understand.
And the sad thing is about Son, he's changed. He's become more like that. He never used to go down. He was always the most honest, straight. But he's thrown himself about a lot bit more than, and that's a real sadness because love him as a player.
Yeah.
The Josie stuff, it's just funny. He's just trying to get some purchase, isn't he, out of it? And it just seemed a bit daft, and he didn't word it well.
No.
He probably, because he speaks about 6 languages, and it probably makes perfect sense in German.
I almost wondered, was he clinging to something? He thought, maybe I've got the nub of a point here and I'm that desperate I'm going to go for it. I don't know.
Did you think he was just trying to get the analogy of food together? But it didn't work, It was a mixed metaphor was actually needed for once. He didn't try to keep the food analogy going. But it was a little bit of a shame, and it ended up becoming the conversation. Actually, in fact, the real conversation should have been about the game.
Yeah.
And I think the right team won over the piece, and the team, certainly by the end of the game, they looked as if they believed in it. Spurs were back to the team that, I know it was where it wasn't at Old Trafford, but when Spurs go to Old Trafford, they almost always cave in, apart from the 6-1 this season. But they looked a wee bit like, you look like you could cave in again, and eventually I suppose they did.
We just need Son's father to come out and say, I did deprive Sonny of food as punishment, in shock reveal to really undercut Mourinho. So tell me this, if you were the referee and you were called over to look at it, you think that is a correct decision to overturn the goal? Because you're in the minority there.
No, I wouldn't overturn the goal. No,
you wouldn't?
No.
It wasn't deliberate, okay.
Because things are happening, arms fly, and he was running away and he touched him.
Yeah.
And it was a bit done. But it absolutely, he's every right to have his arms there running away. No, I wouldn't have disallowed the goal.
Sorry, okay, so they're not mutually exclusive. You wouldn't necessarily have hammered Son for going down, but it's not a free.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Perfect.
That's the case. That's the kind of subtlety of it, that people sometimes miss. If you get hit, sometimes it must be a foul.
Yeah.
It doesn't must be a foul. It happens in games. People run into each other. And the thing that is the common thing, and I've watched in this game tonight, as you can probably tell, I'm keeping an eye on the game as well.
Yeah.
There's been a couple where, there's been incidents where a player's bumped into another player and fell down. Yeah, they touched each other. It's not a foul.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be a foul.
Because a lot of players play like that. Like Pogba gets his arms up. Gaza, they just they're flailing a bit. Now there's a degree where they know if my hand's there and your head's there, things could collide. But there is a natural / unnatural pattern to their play at times.
There's there's subjectivity here. It's not completely objective. We do not know when everybody does it deliberately. There is no way of knowing. Only one person knows, the guy who actually does it. But you can, I would say about 85% of the time you can spot it. When a guy's leaving his arm in a certain way. The giveaway almost always is the look.
Okay.
3 or 4 seconds before it, there's a look. That don't look at the hit. Look at the 2 seconds before it. And if you see the glance, it's deliberate.
Trent to the rescue for Liverpool. Now, he has been majorly under the microscope. Monday Night Football, followed by Madrid on Tuesday, followed by everybody from Ashley Cole to Jamie Carragher, etc. on social media with videos of how he could improve his technique. Ashley Cole said that the pattern of his feet movement wasn't good in one-on-one situations. Have you observed that? I'm sure the left winger in you has looked at Trent and thought yourself, how would I fancy one-on-one against him with the ball? Does he have a problem in that regard?
There are 2 problems, right? The number 1 problem, it looks bad for him because he spends his time so far forward, right? So if you're that far forward, there's a gap in behind you. Now, up until fairly recently, in the last 6 months or so, you had a bloke called Van Dijk coming over and covering for him every single time.
Yeah.
So the ball went behind him into somebody. It's okay. He never looked bad. But that ball's getting played in all the time now, and he's not there. And people are kind of half cheating on him, as you call it. And that ball's been played, and it looks bad because he's out of position, allegedly. If you've not got your centre-back covering over, you've got your sitting midfielder, Fabinho or whoever it is. Now, in actual fact, his favourite one isn't there now because he's injured. The guy who covers it all. So he's injured. So you're kind of stuffed, though. So that's a problem he's got just now. And it's a problem Liverpool got. That's not Trent's problem. That's the manager. The manager's got to say, if we are getting in big trouble in that area, you can't go forward quite as much. You need to choose your times. But he doesn't choose his times. He just always goes. So that's making him look slightly bad on a few occasions. So he's desperately trying to get back in, hence the Real Madrid mistake. He's desperately trying to get back in from being too far up. So that's a positional thing. But I'm still pointing that at the manager because that's the way you play. I love it because it's positive. But don't blame the guy for doing the thing you told him to do. So I'm not blaming him for that. The other thing about positionally and getting beat, yeah, there's a few problems there. I think they should have had a penalty against him at the weekend there. I think he got himself in a terrible position. It was a shove in the back. It was fairly light, but he should have. I can't remember the life of me right now who was the player that went down. Anyway, he's going down, but it takes 2 steps to go down. I think they should have looked at it again. It could have been a penalty kick. It would have been hard on Liverpool because certainly in the first half they were the better team by some distance. But defensively, yeah, the one-on-ones, he's not the best in the business at that. He's absolutely not the best in the business at that. But it's never a problem before because it doesn't get many because Liverpool were so utterly dominant. And it's picking holes in it. He's still an exceptional player. He actually didn't have a great game, but he scores a winner and it's a cracker and it's an extra time or injury time. So, gets a good headlines. But overall, technical display, what he's best at and putting crosses in, he didn't have the best game. So I don't think he's having the best time just now. I still think he should be good enough to be in that England squad, if not necessarily starting just now.
The Manchester United redemption story of Lingard and Moyes continues. It's quite extraordinary. The run they're both on, 3-2 win against Leicester. A few things. Are United willing to sell? I don't know. Does Lingard want to go back? I don't know. Does Fernandes need a backup? I don't know. Does Lingard want to play the backup? All of that stuff is going on. Say United are willing to sell and he thinks, sod this, I'm going to go. What's Lingard worth? Because he's a weird level. Like when he had his good moments, they were exceptionally good, and yet Manchester United fans, I suspect, would generally agree he was just lacking consistency and wasn't quite Champions League, Premier League winning level. Where are you on Jesse?
I don't think he should go back to Manchester United. It's not right for him. It doesn't fit him. It doesn't suit him. And I think he'll go back to where he was before if he goes to Manchester United. So don't stay there, mate. Move. Try and get to a team where you are one of the main, if not the main linchpin of the team. That'll be West Ham United. That'll do it. Yeah. So he's kind of he's gone and arrived at the place which suits him. At this point in time, can I do my I'm being dead smug and I'm being an idiot in the same sentence stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I've spent years telling everybody how brilliant David Moyes is. He's a really, really fabulous manager. And all through the stick he got, I kept on, and I'm going to stick with it, mate. I'm sticking with it. He's a great manager. And I think he is a really, really top manager. However, I never thought Lingard could play. I've always thought he's a bit rubbish.
A bit rubbish, really? In what kind of way? Flaky?
Just nowhere near that standard. Nowhere near Man United standard. Nowhere near good enough to be an England player. I've never thought that. I've never thought he was good enough.
Right.
So, hand up, wrong. So when you get it wrong, you get it wrong. I've just never seen him. And I don't know why. There's a bit of me that's trying to make an excuse for myself by saying, yeah, he's just having a really lucky run just now. Balls are just falling for him. Everything he touches is just going in. I'm trying to make that my excuse, but that's self-indulgent nonsense. He's been really good. He's playing exceptionally well. He's reading plays really well. He's growing into the player that some people... And Moisey must have kind of known it, because he had him at United and must have seen the training ground stuff. So that's why he went for it. And I'll be honest with you, I was up there with the first mistake I thought Moisey had made was getting him over at West Ham. I thought it was a really bad mistake. So I'll put my hands up when I'm being smug, but I'll also put my hands up when I'm the total backside of it. And in the two specific situations there, absolutely never spotted it. And well done, Jesse. Absolutely well done. And of course, he just annoyed you with some of the things he was doing off the field as well.
Yeah.
But, if somebody turns it around, he's been brilliant. I desperately hope for his sake he stays at West Ham. I really do. And I hope they buy him. As for the price, I'll give you a precise price, right? 3 times what he was before he left Man United.
Yeah.
So whatever it was at Man United, he's worth 3 times that now.
Is he playing through the middle for West Ham, or where is he popping up?
He's popping up in a 10 position sometimes.
10.
I think he's been given that bit more freedom.
Okay.
And I think certainly under certain people like a Mourinho or that, he's never going to get freedom to be able to slope. Whereas West Ham, at the moment, they're giving him a decent amount of freedom, coming from wide, sometimes central, sometimes behind the striker. So that sort of freedom to pop up and find out where the space is. And it's the biggest part of the game at the moment. If you look at teams that are doing well, it is all about finding out who can find those spaces. Now, if you're Manchester City, you've been doing it for a long time, But if you look at, the classic example is Chelsea. They spent their entire time trying to figure out who plays behind the striker and in front of their midfield. And when that works, they're brilliant. And when it doesn't work, they're a bit average. And, the weekend it worked phenomenally. And the striker then looks really good because he's actually one who's playing between the two as well. So there's a lot of teams spending a lot of time doing that. And I'm loving watching this. It's a good technical thing, and just now. At the moment, you probably notice a lot of 3-4-3s beginning to creep into the game. And it's not a new system, but it's what the joy of it is just now is changed, because it's 3 at the back, fine, 4 midfield, fine, you've got 2 wing backs and 2 midfielders, all fine, but it's the 3 up front. It's the dead interesting thing, because they're all doing totally different things to make that system completely different. So some of them are doing a wide attack, wide striker up top, so it's a 3. Some of them, like Chelsea, are doing, it's a 2 and a 1. It's a 3, 4, and a 2 and a 1. So they can peel off the inside forwards used to do, right? You look at someone like Brighton tonight. It's 3, 4, 1, 2. So it's 2 up front, 1 behind. And everyone thinks it's the same system. They play totally differently, absolutely differently. And at the moment, it's a system that seems to be confusing a lot of people. And I think it's kind of helped Chelsea quite a bit just now, but it's a system that I'm kind of quite enjoying watching at the moment.
Okay, interesting. I hadn't heard anybody make that point. We might dig into that at some stage over the next couple of weeks. Pat Nevin, as ever, pleasure. Thank you.
All right, see you soon.
Cheers. Pat Nevin with us every Monday. By the way, we're giving away 4 tickets to the upcoming Leaders Lounge live event. There's a ticket for you and 3 friends, along with a hamper of goodies to enjoy during the week. It happens April 22nd. Razzie Erasmus, Brian O'Driscoll, Chanel McCoy, Joanna Reardon, Paul McGinley, all discussing their approach to leadership. To be in with a chance of winning, just tell us what year Paul McGinley was Ryder Cup captain. Your name and answer to 53106 for 30 cents. We'll contact you after the show. All with thanks to Leaders Lounge. Check out leadersloungelive.com. We're talking Republic of Ireland next.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Fake crowd noise. The Emirates never sounded so good. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
This week on Future of Work, it's all about company culture.
What are the perks and supports that businesses can put in place to help you feel part of the team while working from home? And how difficult is it to keep office culture alive in this remote working world?
We'll hear from Dan Mackey, co-founder of Teamwork, about their unique way of dealing with the challenge, and speak to Amy Burke, who'll share some practical tips for businesses.
Future of Work with Jess Kelly and Gavin McLaughlin.
Thanks to VHI Healthcare.
Listen and subscribe to the podcast now on newstalk.com or the Newstalk app.
On Newstalk.
You know what? Whoever said that nothing in life is free is wrong. My mate, One Leg Larry, got a free ticket to a crocodile enclosure last year. Although, up until that point, we just call him Larry. It's probably a bad example, but what about your PRSI entitlement at Specsavers? That gives you a free eye test and free glasses from their €69 range.
And now get free hearing aids with PRSI too. Terms and conditions apply. Find out more at specsavers.ie.
Leaders Lounge, the premium online leadership event, returns on April 22nd with a world-class panel of successful leaders. Razzie Erasmus, in conversation with Paul McGinley, reveals the principles he used to transform South African rugby to World Cup victory. Brian O'Driscoll and Joanna Reardon on their diverse and inspiring leadership journeys. And Chanel McCoy analyses the evolution of the modern business leader. This compelling event is a must-see. Leaders Lounge, Thursday, April 22nd. Book now at leadersloungelive.com.
Boyle Sports now has dozens of new player markets on the Boyle Sports app, powered by Opta. Fancy that informed striker? Markets now available on shots, left foot, right foot and headed goals. Or how about total passes, tackles, assists? They're all available on every match. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie. 18+.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Ready for your next big move? The trip from the fridge to the couch. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
You're welcome back. Still 0-0 between Brighton and Everton. 58 minutes on the clock there. Sorry, 65 minutes on the clock there. It jumped on my screen. So 0-0 between Brighton and Everton. West Brom beat Southampton by 3-0 earlier on. Callum Robinson in the goals again for West Brom. We're turning to the Republic of Ireland, beaten 1-0 in Brussels last night against Belgium. They played Denmark as well on Thursday, beaten in that game as well by 1-0 to discuss. We have Karen Duggan with us of Peamount United, former Irish international. Karen, thanks for the time.
No problem at all.
So Belgium 14th in the world, fancied by quite a few people to do well at the Euros. Denmark 17th in the world, I think. Ireland are about 32nd. What are the big differences between Ireland's level at the moment and the likes of Belgium and the likes of Denmark?
It is that comfort on the ball and their creativity. I thought, considering the gulf in rankings, that Ireland defended manfully. They did really, really well, particularly in the Belgium game. I don't think they were carved open all that much, and there were new faces in that backline, so I give credit to them there. But where we are struggling and have been struggling even prior to these friendlies is in creating those goal chances. It's a bit of a running theme in Irish football at the moment. We are on a 5-game losing streak. Now, granted, every team we've played have been higher than us in the rankings, but in all of those games we've scored one goal. It was a penalty against Germany, and even prior to that, in the games that we drew and won, we were reliant on set pieces as well. So it's that age-old problem of having the attackers who are comfortable enough, and just once we get out of defence, what's the next step? Because I think we do that pretty well. We're matching a lot of teams, even punching above our weight defensively, but getting out of that, getting into the final third and carving something open is a bit of a struggle at the moment.
And are we creating chances and not taking them, or are we not even creating all that many chances across, say, the last couple of years?
A bit of both. It probably is mostly in the creation of chances, though we are getting more comfortable on the ball. I think under Colin Bell's reign, we really tightened up in terms of defensive. We weren't leaking any silly goals. Now, the Belgian goal will be really disappointed with yesterday, conceding from a set piece, lost a player in the box. Goalkeeper could have done better, and that was in the 14th minute. And then after that, Belgium didn't really carve us open all that much. But we were playing with 5 at the back, so that might be a contributing factor again as to why we're not creating these chances. The 5 at the back has been something we've gone to against teams that are of a higher calibre to us. So for me, that formation that Vera is putting out is kind of a damage control. And I'd like to see what our plan is when we play against opposition who are more around our own ranking, and can we get more comfortable on the ball and beat teams like the Ukraine, who unfortunately pipped us in a 1-0 win away from home in the last campaign, and that killed our qualification chances. So it's in those games where we dominate possession. I want to see what we can do more, and if that 5 at the back can become a bit more expansive, and we can get those wing backs forward to support the strikers. But at the moment we're not seeing that, because unfortunately we're playing against teams who are of a higher calibre.
Okay, so you don't have an issue with the formation, but the positioning of the wing backs pretty indicative of whether it's an attacking 5-3-2 or whether it's more 3 at the back. And
for me, I think that the way we play, we're always going to revert back into that defensive formation when we do play that position. I think not having the outlet of the wingers was a bit of an issue for us. I think we asked too much of the strikers. We were asking them to chase balls down the channels through the middle. And I think our midfield in particular would have felt a bit frustrated. Denise O'Sullivan, who's probably our top player at the moment and has been for some years up there with Katie McCabe. She was largely bypassed in the 2 games, and she'll be frustrated with that. She's used to being the person who receives the ball, gets on it, and I think because they drift back into the 5 and then there's very little link-up play, we just found it hard to knit together those constructed attacks. When we attacked, it went well, but there wasn't any real thought behind them. I think we were just getting forward in dribs and drabs and hoping that someone could create something special, something like Heather Payne or Katie McCabe when she did manage to get forward. We were kind of hoping for a bit of individual class rather than having a clear structure when we go forward, which we do have when we defend.
When I think back to a lot of the Euros campaign, from memory, and maybe I got this completely backways, from memory it was 4 at the back, and Denise O'Sullivan was on a lot of ball, and we were trying to play through Denise whenever possible. So that was the case, wasn't it? This is a bit of a shift we're looking at here, are we?
We are looking at a shift, and it's similar to with what the men are going through. If we are going to apply this kind of tactic, where we are looking at the wing backs against the better teams to be more defensive and hopefully get them on in more advanced positions when we play games where we have more of the ball. It's right to play them in the friendlies if that's what Vera's thought is going forward. For me, it's just not my favourite formation, because I do think we just lack a bit of structure in attack. And we don't have a huge abundance of girls who can get a ball and dribble past people and things like that. So like I said, you're relying on individuals to kind of create something special or hold the ball up and support, and you can get a bit isolated at times. So I prefer playing with 4 at the back, and then I guess your wingers become more involved in the attack. Against teams like Belgium, and Belgium did it really, really well. They also played wing backs, but their wing backs were in really advanced positions. And that meant that our wing backs, unfortunately, were pinned back. And for me, Katie McCabe, she's our most creative player, doing unbelievable things at Arsenal. She just won her 50th cap. I just would like to see her be allowed to express herself a bit more and just kind of forget about that defensive duties that are kind of being imposed on her in that position.
Yeah. No, that's all fair. I guess the real litmus test, as you say, is against opposition more at our level. It's funny you mentioned there lots of possession and not creating enough chances and then conceding silly goals. And funny, I just thought straight back to the Ukraine game. I mean, that was it in a nutshell as well. The silly goals thing, it's a weird one to try and eliminate and get out of the team, because nobody needs to say, well, don't pass the ball back against Ukraine into our own net, and nobody needs to say don't make silly mistakes. And yet when they're happening, obviously they're a big concern Who knows why that's crept in and how you get rid of it?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, and I think that nailing down that number one position is a big thing. Courtney Brosnan came in for Grace Maloney. Now, Courtney had a good game, but in terms of how Grace dominated her box and the presence that she gives to those in front of her, I don't believe that she would have conceded the goal that we conceded. Now, that's no slight to Courtney. I think she did have a really good game, and you do have to give players minutes, and perhaps the friendly was the right thing to do that. But I probably would have preferred to see Grace get a half and then Courtney get a half, just to settle everyone in the first half and hopefully frustrate Belgium a little bit more than what we did. And as well as that, Grace has only just gotten that number one jersey, and you want her to get really comfortable with all of her backline, and she had the opportunity to make a connection with two new centre halves, Claire O'Riordan and Claire Walsh, who did excellently last night. So those two girls might come in at some point in a competitive game and they could do a really good job, but it's important that they have a really good relationship with that number one keeper. So Grace, despite definitely being for me the number one pick, still doesn't have enough caps behind her to be really comfortable with every single person on that panel. So again, going forward, I think that yes, you can give Courtney, if Courtney's going to be number two, give her some minutes, but I think at the moment it's more important that Grace builds up that partnership.
Because it has been a problem position, and she's 28, so I mean she's got maybe 10 years in her, so get her in, get her settled, get her part of the furniture. And
I think she should have been in there a few years ago, possibly. But since she's come in, I think she's really proven herself. She was herself a bit disappointed with the goal that she conceded against Denmark. But in terms of dominating her box and how vocal she is and the organisation that she makes her players in front of her get in position really, really early. We lost a player in the box, really disappointing, Megan Connolly, who again had a good game, but lost her player in the box. And then there was confusion with the keeper coming out. She was just a yard too far back, I think, if she was going to come and claim that ball. So it's just one of those split-second things. But again, it costs us. And in a competitive match, it means bigger things, like particularly in that Ukraine game, it was being a yard too far to the right and the pass back came through the centre of the goal and she couldn't adjust her feet quick enough. So there are small, fine margins, but it is fine margins at this level. Like you said, there's a big gulf in rankings between Belgium and Ireland, but in terms of the performance, yes, Belgium dominated a lot of possession, but Ireland created some chances, maybe not as many as Belgium, but the gulf wasn't that huge. But they didn't make any errors like that. They were very, very confident at the back, very confident on the ball. And when their keeper was called upon, she pulled off an absolutely outstanding save from Rucha Littlejohn's free kick. And
much like the men, it's unlikely Ireland are going to transform into a high-scoring team overnight, so they can't afford to give away a sloppy goal here or there and then have to score two. That's where it gets tricky. I'm also a fan of Grace Maloney because she took a picture of Katie McCabe on Twitter to congratulate her on her 50th cap, but put on the plastic surgery filter, which was... perfect, just what you want. It is.
And you know what, Grace is a great personality, and sometimes you forget what that means around a group as well. And Katie, I saw she was getting a lot of praise on Twitter today, everyone recognising her 50th cap. She's a great personality as well, and that's why she was given the captain's armband at such a young age. She has that personality, she has the connection to the older players and the younger players, and she leads by example on and off the pitch, and she's gone not even halfway through her career. She's going to keep building on those caps. She is world class. And for me, that's why I get a little bit frustrated, because I want her to be the main woman on that team, and particularly because I would have marked her years ago when she was playing in the Women's National League and even at training, and what she can do with the ball out of her feet. Very few Irish players are blessed with that natural creative instinct that Katie has. And while she might not always be doing it at Arsenal in that wing back position, when she gets into Ireland camp, I'd like to be just seeing her given free rein to do that and show what she can do there, especially because we have so much cover in that full back position as well. Ali Murphy made a debut last night, Harriet Scott, Anya O'Gorman, Kiva Keenan, who played against Denmark, all really, really strong players, and Heather Payne, who is excellent up front. She can also do a job in a wing back position. So there are options there. I just think that lack of goals is a bit of concern, and if Katie is the key to unlocking that, I think it would be worth looking at.
Yeah, it's fair. Katie McCabe further at the pitch, Denise O'Sullivan on the ball more. Only good things can come from that. The World Cup draw will be made later this month. I presume, is that traditionally a harder gig to qualify for as opposed to Euros?
Yeah, it is. Obviously, there's less spaces for European teams, and the amount of teams in the Euros has expanded. So yeah, it is. It's difficult because you're going to be placed against two really high-seeded teams. The last World Cup qualifying campaign, Norway were the top seeds. They've been renowned in Europe for a very long time, and the second seeds in that group were Holland, who were European champions. They were just at the back of their European win. So it's a big ask for anyone, but Vera has promised. She's saying we will qualify. She's trying to instill that kind of belief in the players, and I think that's a huge thing, because even on the pitch, our second half performance always seems to step up a bit. Even when we go one goal down, we're kind of like, oh, we actually can match these and we can go at them a bit more. So I think that's why she's constantly positive.
Right.
You might not always believe it if you're a skeptic.
I'm just struck by I'm genuinely just like the parallels here between the men's team and the women's team are insane. Like, could keep the ball better, crying out for a striker, not scoring enough. Often have to go 1-0 down to play our best stuff. Best chance to qualify was in the Euros, so now we're looking at the World Cup saying, well, should we just use it to blood more players and build for the following Euros? Like, it's eerily similar.
The same questions are there, and it is the same. We are kind of on a parallel with the men in terms of how our results have been going. I think the women have been. There's a bit more positivity surrounding the women's squad at the moment. It hasn't been quite as bleak a period, and there has been strides being made, but we did come from a lower ebb, whereas the men came from a higher ebb and now are possibly falling. So they are on kind of a more downward trajectory, and negativity that comes with that, whereas we have had some good results in recent years, and obviously there's a lot more media attention, and everyone's trying to just bring that positivity around the women's game, increase participation, increase media attention, increase exposure, and that is coming, and that's why it's always positive. But we also have to be fair and critique and look at the results and try and disseminate how we're actually going to qualify for this first major tournament. We talk about the men, they haven't qualified in many years. The women have never done so, but we are becoming a more professional outfit. We're getting the right structures in place, maybe a little bit too slowly for what we would like, but we are making strides in the right direction. But the problems that the men come up against when it comes to tactics, when it comes to the natural flair that European teams have in comparison to ourselves, all of those things are parallel with the men's team.
Karen, brilliant stuff. Thanks so much.
Thanks a million.
Karen Duggan with us there, giving us her take on Ireland, former Republic of Ireland international herself, and with Peamount United at the moment. Football on Off the Ball is with thanks to Paddy Power. For information on responsible gambling, visit gamblingcare.ie. Latest in the Premier League, 80 minutes gone, still 0-0 between Brighton and Everton.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. Fake crowd noise? The Emirates never sounded so good. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Today, you can alleviate stress on your company finances and stress on the electricity grid by participating in demand response with NLX. By adjusting your energy usage for just a few hours per year, your business could receive a welcome revenue boost. And we could all benefit from a more sustainable future. With NLX, the power really is in your hands. To find out more, visit demandresponse.ie.
How do you put a value on real expertise? How do you put a value on the training, experience and precision that only a true expert in their field brings? Well, 8 out of 10 Irish drivers know how. Because when it comes to the value of Volkswagen expertise, 8 out of 10 Irish drivers would pay more for a Volkswagen serviced by Volkswagen expert technicians. Book your classic service from only €179 at volkswagenservice.ie and keep your Volkswagen a Volkswagen. Terms and conditions apply.
If you're aged 70 or over, you'll be offered your free COVID-19 vaccine next. And people with certain high-risk health conditions will be invited for their vaccine by hospitals or GPs during April and May. You don't need to register in advance. As soon as your vaccine is available, your health service or GP will let you know. For more information on the groups being vaccinated, go to hse.ie or call HSE Live on 1850 24 1850. from the HSE.
Boyle Sports now has dozens of new player markets on the Boyle Sports app, powered by Opta. Fancy that informed striker? Markets now available on shots, left foot, right foot and headed goals. Or how about total passes, tackles, assists? They're all available on every match. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie 18+.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Ready for your next big move? The trip from the fridge to the couch. Gamble responsibly. gamblingcare.ie.
Welcome back. If you missed anything this evening, we were talking Rachel Blackmore earlier in the show. We had Katie Walsh and Johnny Ward talking about the Aintree Grand National winner. Lots of interesting insights into what makes her a great jockey from Katie and Johnny. Monday Night Rugby had Niamh Briggs and Rory O'Connor talking Ireland, Wales, Six Nations and the inequalities in that competition. And then, of course, it's Leinster, La Rochelle in the European Cup semi-finals, so fun and games ahead there. That's all waiting for you to be podcasted, as is the football show. If you've just tuned in, Karen Duggan was on, as was Pat Nevin. Football on Off the Ball is with thanks to Paddy Power. For information on responsible gambling, visit gamblingcare.ie. On the competition front, Kenneth Cameron, congratulations. Paul McGinley was the European Ryder Cup captain in 2014. So you've won 4 tickets to the Leaders Lounge event on April 22nd, all with thanks to Leaders Lounge. Check out leadersloungelive.com. I feel like I said Leaders Lounge a lot there, but you get the picture. Tomorrow morning, 7:30, Graham Hunter, El Clasico, ESPN's Kathleen McNamee talking football, including what she made of Vera Pauw's side over the last couple of games, and Neil Tracy with the Tight Five talking all things rugby. Then tomorrow evening, Thomas Barr is going to join us, counting down to the Olympics. He very much hopes. We have the Liverpool Echo's Caoimhe O'Neill on the football show, and Philippe Auclair, PSG Bayern, not to be missed.